Hello everyone and welcome to the shit show that this movie is, and I'm not just talking from a psychological perspective, but this is an overall hot mess, y'all. Now, if you're a fan of this, first of all, I try very hard not to judge, like you do you, but I'm sorry in advance because I have almost nothing good to say about this piece of media. This is a psychological train wreck riddled with manipulation, zero consent, and enough plot holes to bury the writers under their own nonsense. So today we're doing a deep dive, scene by scene, into this disaster, but not only scene by scene, you'll see. So grab your popcorn or honestly a stiff drink and let's unpack this. So first up, we meet Laura, who's introduced as this strong, independent woman, you know, the type Hollywood loves to dangle in front of us without actually fleshing her out. The movie suggests she's strong by showing this weird dick measuring contest with this dude, which who I don't know who it is, and we have attitude heavy glares and this awkward power play, like I don't know. But here's the thing, this character seems to be a walking contradiction, and you will see what I mean in a minute. On one hand, she's independent, feisty, and all about not taking shit from anyone, but on the other, she's cozying up literally and figuratively with a man who doesn't value her, and that is everything she's supposedly against. After what feels like an eternity of long drawn out scenes, we finally get tossed into the actual plot, if I can actually call it that, and oh boy. The psychological dysfunction, denial, and downright audacity of this movie are truly unmatched. From a psychological standpoint, this whole dynamic is screaming unresolved trauma, maladaptive coping mechanisms, and a dash of why did nobody stop this in the writer's room? So here we have Massimo, the mafia boss extraordinaire, who almost dies 5 years ago and hallucinates a woman. A hallucination, people, okay? This is what we're dealing with. And instead of processing that experience like a normal person, you know, going to therapy perhaps, this dude decides that this random woman is his life purpose. Now, this is obsession on steroids, no talk of love, and it's fueled by a magical thinking, which, by the way, is a textbook defense mechanism for someone trying to make sense of chaos. But instead of working through his near-death experience and the loss of his father, Massimo just slaps all his unresolved issues onto Laura like she's a human vision board for his second chance at life. Now, you think after years of pining for this hallucination, when he finally finds her, he would try to woo her, you know, like maybe some flowers, a heartfelt confession, I don't know. Absolutely the fuck not. My man's genius plan is kidnapping her, because obviously why choose vulnerability and connection when you can just go full-blown fear? Logic has officially left the chat, and Laura, her reaction is where do I even start? On paper, she's supposed to be, again, this strong, independent woman who takes no shit, but all she does is repeat the same tired lines in the scene. I'm not your object, I'm not your property, which valid points, yes, but where's the fear? Where is the emotional reality of being kidnapped by a mafia boss? Her response feels like calm indignation instead of the sheer panic you would expect from someone in a hostage situation. It's giving emotional dissociation or cognitive dissonance, actually, I'm not quite sure. Her brain seems to be refusing to register the actual danger, so she's stuck on these surface level protests, I guess, instead of tapping into genuine survival instincts, or at least that's the logic I'm trying to give, because the alternative is that this is not a character, this is just a plot device. Massimo's aggression isn't just part of his brooding bad boy shtick, it's a calculated tactic of dominance. Meanwhile, Laura's bizarre lack of panic makes no psychological sense, of course, unless you assume she is kidnapped 5 times per month and she's kinda used to it. Either that, or this is again some really lazy writing, trying to pass off detachment as some sort of strength, I guess. I don't know. Psychologically, this entire setup is a mess because it doesn't acknowledge the emotional reality of trauma. If someone's kidnapped by a volatile guy like Massimo, you would expect a survival response. Fight, flight, freeze, fun, I don't know, give me something. But not Laura. She does none of these effectively. Like, she doesn't commit to any. Instead, she floats in this weird narrative limbo where she's neither scared enough to act, nor empowered enough to resist meaningfully. It's like they wrote caricatures instead of characters. Massimo, the delusional narcissist with a savior complex, and Laura, the oddly chill victim who's more annoyed than terrified. And let's not gloss over Massimo's galaxy brain logic here, because this man is a walking red flag factory, yo. He doesn't respect Laura's autonomy. He sees her resistance as a minor obstacle. In his head, he's like, I'm so irresistible that all I need to do is give her time and she'll realize I'm the failure of her story. But let's be clear, okay? His idea of treating someone like a person is completely deranged. For Massimo, not treating Laura like an object means kidnapping her, but giving her the illusion of choice. My guy, are you okay? Blink twice if you need help. His logic seems to boil down to, I'm letting you choose which cage to live in. Aren't I generous? He thinks limited coerced options equal autonomy, which shows a fundamental misunderstanding of consent altogether. It's manipulative arrogance at its finest. He even tells her he's giving her a chance to fall in love with him, like it's some grand favor. Sir, you've kidnapped her. Is the choice in the room with us? Where is it? And then there's the chef's kiss of Massimo's delusion, right? His belief that he can control not just Laura's environment, but also her emotions. This is peak denial of reality. He frames her future love as inevitable, I guess, because he can't handle the idea that she might actually hate him. I don't know. To him, Laura isn't a person, obviously. She's a puzzle to solve or a prize he's already won. Regardless, it's terrifying. Our guy Massimo starts off with the gem, I won't do anything without your permission, while simultaneously touching her without her permission. I mean, the irony is almost hilarious if it weren't absolutely horrifying. This man has already ticked off the entire non-consensual bingo card. Kidnapping her, stealing her stuff, fabricating a breakup story for her boyfriend, and orchestrating her disappearance like he's auditioning for a true crime documentary, my guy. And now he's over here pretending to be Mr. Respectful? Sir, no. And don't even get me started on his manipulative little speech. He's gaslighting Laura, of course, but he's also gaslighting the audience into thinking he's some noble romantic lead. He's not. Spoiler alert. Now, you need to understand, this isn't ignorance about consent. No. Massimo knows exactly what he's doing. His whole approach is a masterclass in coercive control, which basically is an abuser's toolkit for isolating, dominating, and manipulating their victims into questioning their own agency. It's not like he just wants Laura to fall in love with him. He wants her to think it's her choice. You know, it's like locking someone in a room and then saying, oh, look, you chose to stay. And then he hits us with the I cannot tolerate disobedience. Excuse me? This man really said you're free to do whatever you want as long as it's what I want, or am I misunderstanding? I'm sorry, is this supposed to be romantic? Because this is a hostage situation with a sprinkle of delusion, and the I can't be gentle line. That one makes me want to pour bleach directly into my brain. Just say this is who I am and move on, man. He's absolving himself of responsibility for his behavior, framing his aggression as some unchangeable part of his personality. Let me translate it for you. He's saying, if you don't like my abuse, that's on you. Textbook emotional manipulation. Now let's talk about Laura, because, oh boy, the writers really did her dirty. Her muted response to Massimo's endless violations lands her squarely in a psychological gray area. On one hand, you could argue that her lack of resistance is a trauma response. Yes, people often freeze or fawn in the face of danger, especially when they believe their safety depends on appeasing their abuser. This would make sense if Laura were in survival mode. But let's be honest, this movie isn't interested in giving Laura any kind of realistic psychological arc. Her reactions don't feel like trauma, they feel like lazy writing masquerading as a strong character. Her silence in these scenes is deafening. Laura doesn't strategize, fight, or even speak with purpose. Her sole function seems to be to run, get caught, and then be placed in these sexually suggestive positions that scream power imbalance. Now, this isn't just bad writing, it's really an insult to her character and to anyone watching who expected even a shred of respect for female agency. Her hesitation is framed as helplessness. They leave Laura dangling in narrative limbo, using her passivity only to prop up Massimo as the stronger force. Laura, again, isn't a character. Absolutely not. Her entire existence revolves around making Massimo look powerful and dominant. She doesn't have any other role in this. Nothing about their dynamic screams love or even affection or care at this point. It's all about control. And can we talk about the sheer inconsistency, guys? How is Laura fierce enough to fight him when she's trying to run, but suddenly turns into a passive bystander when he violates her more intimately? Yeah, freezing or dissociation in moments of sexual violence are common trauma responses, but the movie doesn't care about context or depth. It uses her passivity to create tension and justify Massimo's actions. It's like somehow the writers are trying to tell us, oh look, she's not fighting back, so maybe she's okay with this? What? And then there's the implied nonsense that Laura's lackluster love life somehow makes her susceptible to Massimo's advances. So, let me get this straight. We're supposed to believe that years of bad sex or no sex would lead someone to go, well, I've been kidnapped, but hey, at least the guy is hot. Maybe this isn't so bad. No! no, that's not how human psychology works. It's absurd, it's insulting, and frankly, it's exhausting. I am so sorry. This is... Massimo, tu hai problemi. You already have problems here, upstairs. Dude, chop. I don't have the entire day to see you walk in dark tunnels, for God's sakes. Oh.
Eccolo il grande Massimo.
È il grandissimo Massimo.
Cosa vuoi picchiarmi? O tagliarmi le palle?
Why are you so sassy? Because you're tied to a fucking stone.
Se tu mi avessi solo derubato sarebbe finita così. Invece hai deciso di vendere dei bambini ad un bordello.
Ah, beh allora, well, yeah, the hero Massimo, eh? Oh, here we go. Massimo, the misunderstood anti-hero. And by misunderstood, I mean the writers are practically begging us to squint really hard and see him as some tragic, complex figure instead of, you know, a kidnapper with control issues. Enter the redemption by comparison trope, which is so laughably transparent, it's almost insulting. The whole pitch is this: sure, Massimo kidnapped a woman because of a vision, but look, he's torturing a child trafficker, so he's not all that bad, right? Wrong. Newsflash, hating child traffickers doesn't earn you a redemption arc, okay? That's literally the bare minimum for being a functioning human being. The bar is so low, it's practically underground where they are, and Massimo still manages to trip over it, like, wow. So, it goes without saying, just because he's not the absolute worst doesn't mean he's good, okay? Being slightly better than a child trafficker isn't character development. At best, it's a cop-out. Now, don't get me wrong, the bad boy with a good side trope can work. It can be compelling, even swoon-worthy, if you will, if it's handled with nuance, though, okay? But let me tell you, there is zero nuance here. To make this trope believable, you need the character to actually show some genuine remorse for their bad behavior. At the very least, you'd want to see growth or, I don't know, an attempt to change. You can't have it both ways, okay? He can't be a morally righteous vigilante against evil by day and a controlling, boundary disrespecting abuser by night.
I'm not flying anywhere unless it's Poland.
I don't think it's up to you, baby girl.
It wasn't an offer, it was an order.
God, you're so tiring,
I'm
Massimo.
not a bag of potatoes that you can transfer without my permission.
Okay, can you say
That's your
some
idea
more
of falling
things?
in love with you looks like you're fucking wrong.
Yo, why de-escalate? Right, let's talk about Laura, because her behavior in this movie is really giving me a whiplash. 1 minute she's combative, standing her ground, and the next she's oddly compliant, just going along with things. Now, does this movie ever explain this? Absolutely the fuck not even a little bit. Is she strategizing? Is she freezing out of fear? Is she dissociating? Who the fuck knows? The story doesn't care enough to fill us in. If Laura's supposed to be the strong character, her wild inconsistency completely undermines that. It seems like she's reduced to her reactions, which are entirely dictated by what the scene demands. Now, let's go into the psychology. Someone in her situation would likely experience acute trauma, you know, the kind where your emotions and behaviors are shaped by survival instincts. But not Laura, no, she's bouncing between emotions like she's playing a game of emotional pinball, and it simply doesn't track. Now, the tone of these scenes, oh my goodness. 1 second we're watching slapping and pushing, intense violent displays of dominance, and then boom, we're pivoting to banter about tempers and nationalities. Excuse me, what? The shifts are so jarring, it feels like two completely different movies were mashed together by someone who forgot how pacing works. This tonal chaos makes the characters feel less like actual people and more like puppets on a string, yanked from one emotional extreme to another for the sake of a chaotic, nonsensical plot, to be very fair with you. And guess what? It leaves the audience completely disconnected because you can't invest in characters who don't behave like real humans, okay? But then, this dude, wow. He starts implying that his short temper, yeah, that's somehow Laura's fault. Classic abuser playbook move. Shift the responsibility for his actions onto her. You make me act this way. It's manipulative, it's gaslighting, it's designed to make her question herself. Because suddenly Laura is left wondering if she's the problem, if maybe, just maybe, she could avoid his temper altogether by behaving differently. Do you hear that? She can't, okay? Because it's not about her, it's about him. It never was, right? But wait! There's more! He adds a little sprinkle of guilt to really drive the manipulation home here. By framing his temper as this thing he's struggling with, because of her, of course, he shifts the focus away from his abusive behavior and makes it all about his supposed internal battle. Suddenly he's the victim! It's no longer about what he's doing to Laura, it's about how hard it is for him. Now, this is the emotional equivalent of kicking someone and then crying about how much your foot hurts. Let's be crystal clear, okay? An abuser's actions are not caused by their victims. They're caused by their own choices.
Get out or else I...
Else what?
Else what?
Or I guarantee you this is the last time you see it.
Dude, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I've ordered it.
There's a lot going here, and none of it is romantic, sexy, or remotely okay, to be fair with you. So, first off, Massimo barging into the changing room without permission. This isn't some flirty, playful gesture, it's a blatant power move. He's not there because he's curious or because he's attracted. He's there to make a statement. Your boundaries don't exist unless I say so. In his mind, Laura's space isn't hers, it's his. It's entitlement turned up to an alarming volume, and it's impossible to miss the underlying message. I own you. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, we move to de-escalation. Laura tries to resist, starting off strong with a firm get out, but when that doesn't work, the vibe suddenly shifts. She pivots to playful banter, and that's when things spiral into outright intimidation for no fucking reason. Massimo pushes her against the mirror, physically dominating her in a way that isn't remotely passionate. It's just violent. And then he drops the line, I ordered it, so I choose when I see it. This strips Laura of her autonomy, her dignity, and frankly, her humanity. He's not treating her like a person, he's treating her like property. Like, what? Now, Laura starts off standing her ground, telling him to get out, but when that doesn't work, she shifts to this bizarre, playful tone. What is going on here? Is she supposed to be leaning into the chemistry? Is that what is happening? Is it a trauma response, like fawning? Or she's trying to de-escalate by appeasing him? We don't know because the movie never really bothers to tell us. The worst part in here, in my opinion, is that Laura's playfulness is framed as if it's a natural response to Massimo's dominance. Like, oh, she's just starting to enjoy it now. Are you kidding me? There's nothing natural about being playful with someone who has consistently violated your boundaries, alright? Someone who has controlled every aspect of your life and someone that escalates to physical violence at the drop of a fucking hat. The scene wants us to buy into this twisted idea that dominance equals attraction, and it's deeply problematic, yo. Let's call it what it is at the end of the day. Massimo's actions are driven by a toxic cocktail of entitlement, narcissism, and zero emotional regulation. Honestly, Laura deserves better. Hell, even the audience deserves better. Do better, writers. Hire some mental health professionals on set, for God's sakes.
Someone kidnapped me and I need help. Can you help me?
Please help her.
Buongiorno, signore.
Oh, Madonna mia santa porca di quella Okay, so we're adding humiliation to the existing manipulation and coercion. Great! Letting Laura run is a calculator power play to remind her just how powerless she truly is. He stops his bodyguards because he wants her to experience the futility of trying to escape, and this is psychological warfare at this point. By allowing her to run only to fail, He's reinforcing a sense of learned helplessness here, systematically showing her that resistance is pointless and that the world outside him offers no safety. The addition of the police being under Massimo's control takes this manipulation to a whole new fucking level. It's a chilling reminder of his influence and the stark display of isolation, common tactic in abusive relationships. When even the system is portrayed as complicit, Laura is left with the crushing realization that there's no one to turn to. No lifeline outside the walls of her captivity, furthering her dehumanizing process. And of course, we get the condescending, if you wanted to run, you should have picked better shoes. Oh my god, such a great joke. That's an intentional move to mock her attempt at freedom. By ridiculing her failure, he chips away at her confidence and dignity, making her feel small and powerless and incapable. Oh god, what a fucking shit show. But Massimo doesn't stop there. Oh no. His attempts to gaslight Laura into seeing her captivity as some kind of adventure are such a crazy manipulation. When he tells her to view this as an adventure, or worse, as fate, he's reframing her trauma into something romantic, something she should embrace. Classic gaslighting, undermining her reality and trying to convince her that her instincts, her fear, her anger, her desire for freedom are wrong. The goal is to make her question her own judgment and start accepting his distorted narrative here. When she pushes back, calling out that this is not fate, but his doing, right? He doubles down with the audacity of, sometimes you need to make your own fate. Massimo, va a cagare, va. Is he really trying to justify his actions by painting them as bold?
I was chosen the head of this family after my dad's death.
You were chosen? Didn't your father
It's
say...
not what I wished for.
What?
I had no choice.
Aw, poor Massimo.
Exactly like me. I would never come to Sicily.
Change your mind.
Okay.
You just have to
What?
help me a little.
Dude, you kidnapped her. What other fucking help you want? Are you insane?
Like you
Yeah? Do not
to
have...
teach me
What?
how to be gentle.
Oh, fuck right off, my man, okay? Fuck right off.
For you.
For you? Let's dig into this dinner scene, which is basically a showcase of how psychological manipulation, control, and gaslighting are all wrapped up in a package the movie tries to sell as romantic tension. At this point, Massimo's tactics are so layered with coercion that every interaction becomes a chess game where Laura is never allowed to make a real move. First, we have Laura wearing the lingerie from the earlier fight. At face value, it might look like she's signaling a willingness to engage with him sexually, but the context strips this of any real autonomy. Laura is still trapped in this situation, remember, where her choices are made under duress and her actions may be less about genuine desire and more about survival. This could easily be a fawning response, an attempt to appease Massimo and regain some semblance of control in a space where she has none, or perhaps it's the result of internalized manipulation where repeated violations of her boundaries have kind of blurred the line between control and affection. Either way, it's a heartbreaking portrayal of someone navigating a coercive environment, not someone freely choosing intimacy. Now, at the dinner, Massimo's relentless need to assert control over what he shares with Laura reeks of narcissistic tendencies. Every conversation becomes a power play with him dictating what is relevant and what she's allowed to know and when. His inability to even relax or let his guard down shows that his dominance isn't just a tactic, it's really a defining feature of his identity, okay? For Massimo, control is everything, and relinquishing even a shred of it is unthinkable. Now, when Massimo claims he didn't wish to become the head of his mafia family and had no choice, it's an appeal for sympathy, an attempt to make Laura see him as someone who has also been forced into a life he didn't want. But this narrative doesn't hold up to scrutiny, okay? Because Laura immediately picks up on the parallel and challenges him with, then you understand me very well, right? This is a powerful moment where she tries to assert her reality that she too had no choice in being thrust into the current situation. But instead of acknowledging her point, Massimo deflects with, you'll change your mind. Now, the request for help, asking Laura to teach him to be gentle. Oh god, this is one of the most manipulative moves in this scene. On the surface, it might seem like he's opening up, but in reality, it's a way to shift responsibility for his behavior onto her. Again, what a surprise. Massimo is essentially saying, it's your job to fix me. Oh, she got her laptop and phone back after behaving at dinner. Not concerning at all, no. Oh god, this is the heartbreaking moment where Laura's spirit visibly starts to crack, and we watch her descend into what can only be described as psychological entrapment. So, after dinner, she gets her reward for playing along at dinner, her phone and laptop. But let's not kid ourselves here, this isn't kindness. Submission earns her conditional privileges, while resistance is met with punishment and deprivation. This is what it is, and it's sickening. The first thing Laura does with her newly returned phone is call her mom. But instead of screaming for help or spilling the truth, she fabricates a story about a job opportunity in Sicily. And here's the thing, this to me is a survival strategy. Laura's made-up story serves two purposes. It protects her from Massimo's retaliation if he finds out she reached out, and it spares her mom the stress of knowing her daughter is in danger. Every attempt to resist, whether it's involving the police, trying to escape, or even standing her ground, has ended in failure. Over and over again, she's been shown that resistance is useless and dangerous. This seems a little bit more, slow, consensual. She's flirting a bit. I think she's good. What the fuck is wrong with you? Listen, I'm not gonna lie. For a second, I had hope. But it got squashed very quickly. For one fleeting moment, it looked like we might actually get a meaningful shift. Laura takes the lead, initiating a calm and sensual interaction. Her actions are playful, they're deliberate, and entirely on her terms. It's this rare, fleeting moment of agency that feels like she's testing the waters, reclaiming some control, dictating the pace, and maybe, just maybe, seeing if she can assert herself within the confines of her captivity. But nope, of course not. The moment Laura decides to end the flirtation and walk away, Massimo escalates. The physical act of grabbing the back of her neck and pulling her back to him is aggressive and a blatant assertion of power. Like, it's super fucking scary. And then he drops the line about being used to taking everything by force. My guy. Let's call it what it is. Childish excuse designed to absolve him of accountability. He's framing his aggression as habit. So Massimo is kind of painting himself as a victim of his own nature. Like, what? Are you a feral cat? What is happening? It's manipulative, it's gross, and it reinforces this idea that his behavior is inevitable, as if he's powerless to change it. The fuck? And the line about someone taking away a pleasure he wants? Dude, holy fucking shit. It's like it's like Laura's decision to end the interaction is a personal insult, as if she's stealing something from him. And this is where we understand that in Massimo's warped world, her body and consent are things he already believes he owns, so her resistance feels to him like a violation of his rights, and it's honestly disturbing to see. But wait, there's unfortunately more, because then he throws out the ultimate gaslighting cherry on top. Don't provoke me. Dude, what the fuck do you mean? Laura wasn't provoking him. She was being playful, a world of fucking difference. She was testing boundaries, trying to see if she could engage with him in a way that felt safe and non-threatening. Her flirtation wasn't about challenging his dominance, okay? But does Massimo care? Absolutely fucking not. Honestly, this whole dynamic is so psychologically exhausting. Fuck. Let me tell you, this kind of miscommunication erodes the foundation of a healthy sex life, but we'll dive deeper into this topic later in the video. Honestly, at this point of the movie, I started to really get sad simply because I can't believe something so toxic has come into existence in the 21st century.
English, please.
English, please. God, I hate this character so much. Like, Michele, I have nothing against you if you ever look at this, but fucking Christ, Massimo, what are you doing? Please stop touching her without her consent. Oh my God. What?
Are you talking about me?
So you were kicking and screaming before, and now you're all like, are you talking about me? What type of character is this? Oh, I need to breathe, because if you ever wanted a masterclass on how to take coercion, abuse, and psychological manipulation and wrap it up as romantic tension, this scene is it. And I know I'm saying this about every scene, but goddamn, every second is jarring, every decision is baffling. Jesus Christ on a cracker, what the actual hell is going on here? Ooh. First, let's talk about Laura being restrained in her seat. This is not some metaphorical thing. She's literally tied down because heaven forbid she dares to be difficult while being kidnapped. Abductees aren't as polite as they used to be, that's for sure. Massimo's actions are a complete violation of the respect he so boldly claimed to have for her boundaries, right? But at this point in the story, I have officially given up on logic, okay? Now, let's get to the touching. Oh goodness, when Massimo rubs her breasts and then moves downward before abruptly stopping with the line, "You have to earn the pleasure," I literally screamed. I actually did not, but internally I did. This is predatory. Stopping like that ensures that even Laura's physical responses, things she can't control by the way, become tools in his twisted fucking game. The implication here is as gross as it is infuriating, which is Laura's worth, her right to anything, even her own body, is something she now has to earn by playing by his rules. Do you hear the insanity at play? Cause what the fuck? And it gets worse. This scene weaponizes bodily responses in the creepiest fucking way. Let's be very clear here, okay? Arousal, it's a physiological reaction, not a reflection of consent or emotional engagement, okay? Replay that part if you need to. The body responds involuntarily to stimuli, okay? It's biology, not desire, but not for this movie, apparently, because it's trying so hard to blur that line, framing Laura's potential responses as evidence of some seductive interplay instead of what it actually is: psychological and physical abuse. Then there's the moment where my last two brain cells packed their bags and said goodbye because Laura's behavior shifts a full 180. At first, she's resisting, struggling and screaming like any normal person who's being abducted would, right? I mean, this man is literally hauling her around like a sack of potatoes. But then, and this is where I literally lost that man, the movie skips over all her trauma and suddenly, poof, she's flirty and carefree, and once they arrive at their destination, she's suddenly being so crazy. Oh, what the fuck? Am I supposed to believe she's now just playing some power game to make him squirm? Where is the psychological foundation for this nonsense? I think I need just really a shower after this. Oh shit, it's closed.
Open the door. I want to leave.
Consent. Ask for consent, ask for consent. Please ask for consent. Oh, no, what are you doing? Didn't she say at the beginning, "I'm not gonna tie you up"? Am I completely insane? What is... This might have earned the title of the most fucked up scene in this entire shit show, simply because we finally see it for what this is: psychological abuse framed as romance. Poor Laura. She's reduced to a broken record of the same tired cycle. Protest, attempt to take back some power, get dominated both physically and mentally, repeat. It's like her character exists solely to remind us she has no agency. So let's start with the setup. So Laura enters Massimo's room trying to be playful again, and it makes zero sense. She's been repeatedly violated, and yet we're supposed to believe she would adopt flirtation as her way of engaging with her captor. Fuck no, but whatever. The locked door is about holding the power, of course, but then we get to the real fucked up shit. The oral act with another person in Laura's presence is weaponizing the experience to send a message loud and clear. This could have been you. You could have been the special girl that gets to make me feel this way. Because even the way this is filmed, with the camera focusing on his reactions, not the act itself, it's a deliberate choice to center Massimo's pleasure and dominance, because that's what really matters here. And then we hit the ambiguous "please and I'm begging you." But what is she begging for? For him to stop? For it to continue? We have no fucking clue, because the movie leaves this deliberately unclear, which is absolutely unacceptable. Consent should never, ever be ambiguous. It must be clear, mutual, and enthusiastic. Okay? By blurring these lines, the film disrespects its audience and perpetuates dangerous myths about consent. I can't describe how irresponsible this is. But wait! There's fucking more! Massimo's eventual decision to untie Laura is framed like it's some act of restraint, I guess. Oh, let me be clear. Stopping abuse isn't a fucking favor, okay? God damn it. It's not a redeeming quality. It's the bare minimum of human decency. Come on now. Yet here we are with the movie asking us to applaud Massimo for not taking things even further. Oh, our savior, Massimo. Oh, goodness gracious. Are we seriously supposed to give him a gold star for that? What the hell? And while we don't get much insight into Laura's inner world, because let's be honest, this movie doesn't give a shit about her as a character, the psychological impact of this scene is immense, guys, okay? Like, come on. This isn't just bad, it's one of the worst movies I have ever seen in my entire life, and trust me, that's saying something. Now, before diving into the toxic tropes this movie presents, dialogue analysis, and the character profiles, let's address some of the popular comments I've seen online that defend this movie.
Why would you do that?
Let me just... there are some people saying this is a movie for the female gaze. Well, then I must have been watching with my wrong pair of eyeballs because I saw nothing that remotely resembles that. Let's start with what the female gaze actually is for those throwing the term around like it's confetti at a bad wedding. The female gaze isn't about slapping a six-pack on a man and calling it a day. It's not about, oh, he's rich, oh, he's powerful, he's dangerous, but he's so hot, so I'll forgive anything. No, the female gaze is about mutual passion and agency. It's about showing characters as real, layered humans with emotions, motivations, and desires that make sense. And you're telling me that 365 days, this montage of yachts, abs, and emotional manipulation is the female gaze?
Get the hell out of here!
Laura is not even a fully realized character. In fact, we know really nothing about her. What are her dreams? What are her aspirations, hobbies, values? She's kidnapped and stripped of her choices, and you want me to what? Identify with her? But let's flip that around for a second, okay? Why is mutual consent somehow seen as boring? Vanilla. Because this movie has been accused to, if you don't like it, then it means you're vanilla. Think about it. Two people enthusiastically choosing to explore each other emotionally and physically has endless possibilities for passion and creativity and intensity. The keyword here is choosing, though. There's nothing vanilla about being deeply desired by someone who fully respects and craves you, okay?
Why do I have to say that to you?
But you know what? Let's address the elephant in the room here. I wonder where this idea came from that without violence or consent issues, we have vanilla sex. Oh yeah, you know where it came from?
It's the old male gaze.
From the male gaze. In this framework, sex is about conquering. What a surprise. And if both partners are equally empowered, where's the thrill of dominance, eh? That's why narratives like 365 Days thrive. They center on a fantasy where a strong, conventionally attractive man breaks down a woman's resistance or teaches her how to desire him. So maybe let's make some differences, shall we? The male gaze fetishizes control. Instead, the female gaze fetishizes desire, the raw, mutual craving, and the physical, unapologetic enjoyment of pleasure without coercion. The male gaze reduces women to objects of desire, not active participants. The female gaze instead paints women as active participants in their own pleasure. They have preferences which they speak out loud, and their boundaries are always respected, allowing them to have equal power in this dynamic. We never mistake fear and manipulation for passion because it strips the intimacy of any genuine intensity. Which brings me to my next point. There's also this talk that if you don't like the movie, you must have a boring sex life. That we don't understand the push and pull of these characters. Are you guys high? That push and pull dynamic is kidnapping, okay? There's no real pull when Massimo is forcing every move while Laura flails around with inconsistent reactions. Seeing it as the shit show it is doesn't make someone vanilla. It means they're healthy human beings that cherish their autonomy, even while having intense sex. Now, we all know that a huge part of the male gaze is this insidious idea that as a woman, you need to let go of fear, discomfort, or even your instincts, because if you don't, you're branded as boring, uptight.
It's all just a bunch of bullshit.
It romanticizes the notion that the only way to truly experience passion is to surrender your boundaries and trust the man, no matter how many red flags he's waving in your face. Probably that's why we currently have such a big orgasm gap, because women, generally speaking, are not in control of their own pleasure, because it's framed as something a man gives or does to a woman rather than something both partners actively explored together. It perpetuates this idea that women's pleasure is secondary, mysterious, or entirely dependent on their partner's actions. And do you know where I see this difference the most? When counseling hetero couples and talking about intimacy, there's a common problem of she doesn't want it as much as I want. And let me just talk about that for a second, because this is tightly connected. More often than not, the issue isn't that she doesn't want it as much as he does, but her desire isn't being catered to or considered at all. The male gaze has conditioned men to believe that they're inherently desirable just by showing up, while women are the ones expected to dress sexy and be desirable to keep things spicy. So when I suggest for him to try costumes like, firefighter or policeman, or I don't know, put on a suit and have a bit of a role play, or for my Akotar girlies, maybe buy some fey wings and call it a day, many men seem extremely uncomfortable. For so many men, the idea of catering to the female gaze, dressing up or playing into a fantasy or making themselves the object of desire feels alien, even threatening. But why? Because the male gaze has told them that they're the default protagonists of every sexual encounter. The idea that they need to actively seduce or play a role flips that narrative, and for some it feels like stepping into an unfamiliar territory where they're no longer in control. And here, my friends, we see the double standard clear as day. Men are generally speaking extremely uncomfortable with the idea of being objectified. We see that extremely often when talking about gay men and how they fear that gay men might, hit on them or, God forbid, find them attractive. And yet so many have zero problem expecting women to not only tolerate objectification, but actively embrace it as part of their identity. It's this bizarre entitlement that's been baked into social norms thanks to, you guessed it, the male gaze. Men have been taught that being objectified is emasculating because it reduces their power and agency, but for women, objectification is presented as their ultimate power move, as if being desired for your body is the highest compliment you can receive or something. Movies like 365 Days thrive on this toxic narrative, suggesting that distrust, fear, and even outright terror are just stepping stones to passion. As if you're only worthy of a grand love story if you learn to silence your own agency and let someone else dictate your boundaries. And the thing that is mostly baffling to me is people call it an erotic romance. Romance? Where? Show me 1 ounce of actual romance in this movie, because all I see is manipulation, coercion, and toxic power plays. And why in the name of fuck does erotism always have to come through a complete lack of consent and autonomy? You're telling me the only way to make something sexy is to shove a woman into a situation where she has no say, no safety, and no real way out? And no thanks. Erotism doesn't need coercion to be compelling, and it definitely doesn't need to romanticize trauma. You want some consensual pieces of erotic romance and female gaze? Say less. Movies like Unfaithful, The Handmaiden, Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, Disobedience, and so many more can help you have steamy scenes without the actual underlying message that having no choice is sexy. Sure, there might be some problematic things as well, but at least you have a growth arc. Things change. There is depth.
I don't wanna keep you waiting. That's why you blame